The people love their king.
They know I saved the city. They know I won the war.
The war's not won.
Show them how it feels to lose what they love.
I'm going to light the biggest fire the North has ever seen.
Hello, this is Teresa Ewers with New Mexico Entertainment Magazine, and we are here with the one and only George R.R. Martin. We appreciate you meeting with us today.
My pleasure.
Hey.
Very glad to be here.
Great. And I want to actually start with the theater, which I know the theater closed in 2006, and you made the decision to reopen. What led to that decision?
I used to go to this theater. I was a customer of this theater. I love movies. I love watching movies in movie theaters, much more so. I'm not of the watch it on a computer screen or on your telephone generation. I'm of the movies belong in a movie theater on a big screen. And Jean Cocteau was one of Santa Fe's most beloved theaters. It dated back to the 70s and the 80s. Originally opened in the 70s as a collective fantasy. Became the Jean Cocteau in 1984. So it had a great 22-year run, and I saw many movies here that I have fond memories of. Also, the popcorn, which was the basic best in town. They always had great popcorn here. So it did close in 2006 when the Translux Corporation, which was the last of like 4 people to own it, shut down all of their movie theaters. And it's only 10 minutes from my house, so I was always passing this theater, and every time I would pass it and see it all dark and closed up with a for sale or release sign in the door, I'd think, oh, someone should reopen that theater. That was such a great little theater. And I must have done that, I don't know, 20 times. You know, someone should reopen that theater. I wish someone would reopen that theater. And then one day, I don't know why, it suddenly just clicked over, I should reopen that theater. Why don't I do it? I should find out what they want for that building. And so I did. I had my realtor call up their realtors and inquire what they wanted for the building. And the rest is, history. We bought it in April. We refurbished it into what you see around here. We're still refurbishing a little bit here. As you just saw, we still got work going on and workmen climbing over the place. But we reopened in August 9th, and we've been rolling ever since with movies and the marathon of Game of Thrones, the television show. We have live music here. We got a magician coming in from LA's Magic Castle in a couple of weeks. So we have all sorts of exciting stuff going on there at the Cocteau, and it's very nice to have it alive again. A little piece of Santa Fe history, a little bit of the Santa Fe entertainment community come back to life.
So when it comes to the decisions of what's brought here, are you also involved in what's coming in, the movies, entertainment, everything, or?
To some extent. I did, John Bowman, who is the founder of the Santa Fe Film Festival and ran the Santa Fe Film Festival for 20 years. And before that was a reviewer for the Santa Fe New Mexican and the Santa Fe Reporter. He has ties with the film community that go back 40 years or so. I hired John to be my manager because I don't know anything about managing movie theater. But John knows it all. He knows all the distributors and how the business works and all that. So he books most of our movies. But I chime in once in a while from the owner's box and say, I want to see Forbidden Planet. And then he books Forbidden Planet. And that was the movie we opened with, my favorite science fiction movie. So we had Robbie the Robot here and everything. And he'll come back from time to time, Robbie will. I also have a lot of contacts, of course, after the career I've had in the literary community. So one of the big things we've been doing here is author events. We've had Pulitzer Prize winner Michael Chabon here for a talk and a book signing. We had Pat Conroy here. We're going to have Ann Perry coming in a couple of months. So I have a little role in setting those up because I know the publishers and the book community. But John handles most of our movie distribution and all that.
Well, I know that a lot of your fans are familiar with your works, of course, with Game of Thrones, which led to your HBO show. But I wanted to go a little bit back in your start in Hollywood. And you actually worked for shows I used to watch, Max Headroom, Beauty and the Beast. What led to your decision to not stick with Hollywood and go into just straight book writing genre?
Well, you have to go back even further than Hollywood because I began with books. I mean, my first professional sale was 1971. It was a short story. I wrote science fiction, fantasy short stories from the late 60s, pretty much through well into the early 80s. But for the first 6 years of my career, at least 71 through 77, it was all short stories. I must have published 50 short stories. In the magazines, finally in 1977, I published my first novel, science fiction novel. And I had, over the years that followed, in the late 70s and early 80s, I had 4 novels published. First 3 of them did better and better. The 4th novel, which was a book called The Armageddon Rag, was sort of a bit of a departure for me. It was a contemporary novel about rock and roll and counterculture, you know, in the 80s, but a lot of reflection on what happened in the 60s, set in that world. And it got great reviews. It was nominated for the World Fantasy Award. It did have a fantasy element in it, but nobody bought it. It was a total commercial disaster, despite the fact that they'd given me a lot of money for it. And you know, publishing, not unlike Hollywood, you know, you're only as viable as your last movie or your last book. So suddenly, from being a rising young star for my first 10 years, I had this black mark on my record. No publisher wanted to touch me. I couldn't sell a supplement novel beyond that. Fortunately, at the very same time that door was closing, the Hollywood door was opening. Also, oddly enough, because of The Armageddon Rag, which was optioned for film. The film was never made, but through it I got to meet a guy named Phil DeGuerre, who, when he wasn't trying to develop The Armageddon Rag as a feature film, was running a show called Simon Simon, and he developed a couple other shows, and it was to Phil DeGuerre that CBS entrusted the notion of let's bring back Rod Serling's Twilight Zone. And when Phil got that assignment, he turned to a lot of the science fiction fantasy writers I knew and asked them, even people without any television or film experience whatsoever, like me, and he asked us to do scripts. So I did a script for Twilight Zone, and then I wound up doing another script for Twilight Zone. And next thing I know, I was on staff, on the writing staff for Twilight Zone. So I went out to Hollywood for a while and worked on that. Always kept my base here in Santa Fe because I don't like Los Angeles and I didn't want to move there. But I would stay there for a while, and I did work on Twilight Zone. I wrote a few things for Max Headroom, although they were never filmed, unfortunately. That show was a very short-lived show. But I always regretted that because I loved that show. And I did have a script in pre-production at the time they shut down. So if only they would have waited a few more months, I would have had at least one Max Headroom episode. And then I went on to Beauty and the Beast, where I wasn't there for the entire run of that show. And all of that was good. You know, it was stressful. Hollywood is high stress. And I didn't like having to spend so much time in Los Angeles. But I like to work. I like working with other people. I work with some terrific writers and some very, very talented actors. You know, on Beauty and the Beast, we had Ron Perlman, Roy Dotrice, Linda Hamilton, Joe Anderson, Jay Aglavone. Yeah, just some marvelous, marvelous actors that I got to write for. But at that point in my career, I'd risen high enough in Hollywood that I was at the stage where I could possibly create my own show. So after 5 years of working on shows created by other people, I started writing pilots, and I started writing feature film scripts, which is a very lucrative thing. It's even more lucrative if you actually get a show on the air and have some ownership of that show. But it's also very frustrating. I mean, it's development is what they call it, and a lot of people in Hollywood call it development hell. And I understood the meaning of that term, because you work on a project for a year, and then for one reason or another, often having nothing to do with the quality of the script, it's, nah, we've decided not to do that. What else do you have? And yes, they give you large dump trucks full of money. Those are nice. But at a certain point, I just decided I need an audience. I'm an entertainer here. I learned that about myself. I can't spend a year of my life creating characters, creating stories, and nobody ever gets to see them except 4 guys in a room, or maybe some focus group somewhere. So I went back to books, which was my first love, and started Song of Ice and Fire, which became Game of Thrones. So there's a certain irony there that, you know, those 5 years I spent trying to get a show on the air, trying to come up with my own television concept that would be producible and all that. I finally put all that behind me, and I'm writing something intended purely for prose, saying, well, they'll never make this into a television show or movie because it's too big, it's too expensive, it's absolutely unproducible. That's what becomes the huge television hit. So, you know, it just goes to show you that nobody knows anything.
Well, I see that science fiction and fantasy are your wheelhouse. What led you to that genre? What was it that drove you in that direction?
I don't know. I was corrupted in my early youth. That's what I read and loved when I was a kid growing up in Bayonne, New Jersey. Mm-hmm. Comic books initially, and then I graduated to little science fiction paperbacks and fantasy paperbacks. Bought them off the spinner rack in a grocery store. I read other things too, and you know, I still read other things. I read literary novels, I read mystery novels and historical fiction. I love historical fiction. But science fiction and fantasy has always been, you know, at least half, if not 3/4 of my reading.
So the show is blowing up. Everybody loves it. It's been doing quite well.
Yeah, it's had a nice run.
Yeah. So how, being that this is your baby, you wrote it, how do you feel about the direction that it has gone?
Oh, I love it. You know, the books are my baby. The show, because I'm still in the middle of writing the books. I mean, I'm writing right now the 6th book in the series, The Winds of Winter. They're gigantic books. They're about 1,500 pages long in manuscript. They take me years to do. And I know from my previous experience in Hollywood that running a show, even being on a writing staff on a show, is itself a full-time job. So there's no way I could do both. So I write 1 script per season for the show. But the show is really run by David Benioff and D.G. Weiss. And they've done an incredible job on it. They've usually read about 7 of the 10 episodes. And, you know, we talk all the time and consult, but it's really their baby. And you know, it's a little nervous-making when you take, you know, your own child and give it to someone else, sending them off to the first day of school or entrusting it to a nanny or whatever. But as nannies go, David and Dan have been fantastic, and the show's fantastic. HBO, I mean, you can't beat working for HBO. I worked during my own years in Hollywood primarily for the broadcast networks, for CBS and ABC, a little bit for the others, but this is a whole different experience. HBO is so supportive. The budgets are bigger. Of course, you always want a bigger budget. You know, no matter how much money they give you, you'd always like a little more. Then you could do a little better. You'd like a little more time too. I mean, we do 10 episodes a season. I wish we did 12 episodes a season, which would enable us to include some things that we unfortunately have to drop. But still, we're probably as expensive as any show on television right now, if not more so. And we shoot in 5 different countries. The cinematography is incredible, and the actors are, I think, the most amazing cast in television. There's no one that can equal our group of actors. They're also the biggest cast in television. You know, probably twice the size, if not more, of any other cast, because the books are so big. There's so many intertwined storylines. So there's a lot of people involved. But we've been showing the first 3 seasons here at the Jean Cocteau, starting in January, and we'll be going on to the end of March as a marathon. And in part because I wanted people to see these shows on the big screen. Mm-hmm. You know, they're great on your home television screen, but they're really spectacular on the big screen, where you can see the quality that goes into our direction and our cinematography and some of these incredible locations we use. You get the full value of them when you're with us on a large movie screen. So that's been very exciting for me to get these audiences in there and show them the show on the big screen. So
when it comes to Winds, which is the 6th book, and I know it was quite anticipated for a lot of your fans, could you tell us a little bit about this upcoming book?
I don't know. What can I tell you about it? I don't want to spoil anything. There's a couple sample chapters out there. You can get a little taste of it. If you buy the paperback of Dance with Dragons, which is around here somewhere, you have a sample chapter in the back. There's another sample chapter on my website. There's going to be a 3rd sample chapter that goes up on a new app that my publishers, Bantam, are doing. So you can get a few samples of it here and there, but they're only a small part of the whole. They're like, 15-page chapters in a 1,500-page book. So I still have a lot of writing to do. In fact, I probably should be home right now. So.
Well, being that you have
people like you who keep distracting me. Every time I do
It's
one of
all
these,
my
I
fault.
get these angry letters from fans. Why are you doing another interview? Why are you home writing? But I get that for everything. Why are you watching a football game? You should be home writing. Why are you opening a movie theater? You should be home writing. And it was pretty much anything I do that isn't, I wrote 6 pages of Winds of Winter today. That's the only thing that they want to hear.
Well, I can honestly say when the book is released, it's wonderful. So it's a whole good thing comes to those who wait process. But yeah, I know I'm taking you away from your process.
Because the irony, even when the book is finally released, I'll work for like 6 years on Dance with Dragons, and it'll come out, and 2 days after it comes out, maybe the day it comes out, I'll get the first letter saying, "Oh, I read Dance with Dragons, it was great. When's the next one coming out?" And I just gave you one. It took me 6 years. Can you give me a little more time here? The next one will come out in 6 more years. I don't know. Hopefully it won't be 6 more years. That gets out, they'll go crazy. But I'm trying to get these done, because of course my other thing that I have to deal with is the show. The show is moving forward like a locomotive. Dave and Dan are doing 10 episodes a season, and they're catching up to me. So I used to have like a 4-book lead, and now it's down to like a 2-book lead. So I better finish that other book before they, so.
Well, I got my last question for you. And being that you are now essentially a legend in this field, what would you like your legacy to be?
Well, I think every writer dreams that his books will last, and that's what I hope of. I was very, very flattered a number of years ago when Time Magazine called me the American Tolkien, because I'm a huge fan of Tolkien. I read him when I was in high school. He's trying to redefine modern fantasy. Just being mentioned in the same breath as Tolkien is an incredible compliment for me. And if my books are read, 100 years after I wrote them and become part of the canon of fantasy, the way Tolkien's books have, that will be legacy enough for me. And I also hope that the Jean Cocteau here is another thing that will last. We had a 22-year run, the first Cocteau, from when it opened in '84 to when it closed in 2006. I hope our revived Cocteau goes another 22 years, and we have a lot of people in here to see music and watch movies and eat the popcorn, which is still the best popcorn in New Mexico. Real butter, none of that crankcase oil. So, so all of that.
Well, thank you, Mr. Martin. I appreciate you pulling away from your writing to be with us today.
My pleasure.
It's great to meet you. This is Teresa Ewers with New Mexico Entertainment. See ya.
The revenge you want will be yours in time.